Hey guys, it's Kevin in my review for The Banker. So what The Banker is essentially about is we center on the character of Bernard Garrett, and he is this young entrepreneur of sorts, but it also is in the 60s, so it's not as accepted as it would be then, considering that he is black. So he decides to devise this plan with Samuel Jackson's character Joe Morris, where they are going to try to hire this white guy to pose as the leader of this bank that they're trying to establish. Meanwhile, they actually are going to end up creating a bank, and did end up creating the actual one of the first African-American banks in the United States overall. So, The Banker, what an interesting film, because this is yet another one of those movies that was supposed to come out a while ago. This was supposed to come out back in, December, but it got pushed back because of some really dumb controversy with, the son, not even a character, not even one of the characters, but the son of one of the characters in the movie. And I get it, he's like a co-producer on the film and things like that, but his credit was removed, and I really don't understand why they need to push it back. They could have easily just removed his credit to begin with, but whatever. It's finally coming out, and, considering that it had some controversy, it's a film where I was a little bit worried. I didn't really know how it was going to turn out overall. I'm always intrigued to watch films that, are pushed back, and I hope to see them, but this wasn't really a film that, I was, hyped out of my mind for. It just wasn't really one that I was that excited for overall, but it was a film that I was hoping would be good. And I will say, The Banker's actually a really solid movie. This is a better film than I was overall expecting, and definitely was not worth this long-ass wait at all. It very easily could have come out when it did, because it's honestly pretty harmless. But we're just getting to right now, starting off with the cast, and that is definitely one of the things that really does work very well in this movie. You got a really great cast of actors here for sure, but I think the absolute standout of this movie is very much Anthony Mackie, who, look, Samuel Jackson, yes, he's in the film, but make no mistake, this is very much Mackie's time to shine, and he does a really great job here. What he did really good, I think, in this film is that he's shown before that he can be a really good actor, but all the roles he's had other than the MCU, they've been relatively small. He just hasn't stood out as much as he maybe wanted to. This is really his time to shine, and I think he gives maybe his strongest performance yet. Bernard Garrett is someone who is just very annoyed at the way things are going on, the casual racism, the way that he's denied certain things, and he really is trying to make a change. He has big dreams in that way, and I think Mackie did a really good job just showing the subtleties of that character, showing that this isn't a guy that gets angry a lot, but he is very annoyed, and he's trying to do everything that he possibly can to make this work out. He doesn't know if it's going to, but he really is trying to make this work as much as he possibly could. And I thought overall he just did a really great job in this movie, especially towards the third act. He has some really meaty scenes, and his pairing with Samuel Jackson is just, that is a match made in heaven. Those two work so well together. Samuel Jackson is so great in this movie, as always. He has some really great one-liners here, but he also does a really great job as the older, wiser sort of mentor of sorts, who he, tries to bring Bernard back to reality. He is a little bit more skeptical of what they're setting up, but I really like the bond between these two. They very much are the reason many people are going to want to watch this movie, and they definitely did not let you down. They do a really good job acting-wise here, and I think are definitely one of the best things about this movie. In terms of the rest of the cast, I think everyone does do a really good job, though I will say they don't stick out nearly as much as the main two performances here. Nicholas Hoult, for example, an actor I really do like quite a bit. At first, he's a really big standout as Matt Steiner, this guy that is honestly kind of dumb. He doesn't know a lot about banks at all. Mackie literally has to, teach him math again and things like that. And then he tries to mask all of that and put on this front. But once he starts to become a little bit more intelligent, he phases out a bit, but he still is impressive in the role. He still does do a good job here. This just once again feels like another performance where he's a bit outshined by the rest of the cast. This tends to happen to Hoult a lot, and unfortunately this is another one of those performances. Niceole is really good here as Mackie's wife. I thought she definitely did do a really solid job in this movie. Jessie Usher I thought was really good here. Colm Meaney does a really good job at making you hate him. He's a really good villain in this movie. He's very slimy. He's very villainous in that way, and I really did like what he was doing here overall. Most of the cast here, everyone does do a really solid job. I didn't really think there was anyone that, like, wasn't impressive in this movie. I think everyone really did stick out as much as they possibly could. Now we're going to get into the directing and the writing, which that is another one of the things I think works really well in this movie. George Nolfi's directing here is really well done. You can tell right off the bat that he really does care about the story. He's trying to tell it as faithfully as possible, and that's something that always does stick out to me with a film like this. But what really surprised me about this movie is that it actually can be a lot of fun at points. The actual scheme that these two men devise, Nolfi does a really good job of directing it, showing the highs and lows of what was going on for them, that they were kind of on top of the world for a while. They were kind of unstoppable. But he also does do a really good job of letting that other shoe drop. When things start to get dark, they don't feel like overly dramatic. It feels real. The stakes that they're in, this feels like, okay, this is probably how it went down. And I thought his directing was really well done. And the writing as well, I think, is also really good in this movie. I think that the screenplay overall, it's definitely a very solid one. Like I said, the actual story that's being told here is one that I do think is very important. It's not one that I really have heard anyone talk about before, and I think that's a problem because this was around the time when racism was very popular. It was pretty much at its peak around this time. Just there were tons of black, men that were just denied so many access to things, so many resources to things, and seeing how this happened to someone like Bernard Garrett and how he literally couldn't do what he wanted to without hiring a white man to do it is really well done. They do a really good job with just showing, again, just how he's treated throughout this movie, the way he puts on this scheme. It's really interesting to watch, but again, also the bond between him and Samuel Jackson that grows from this, the way these two really do start to rely on each other more. I really liked that bond quite a bit. I think that the screenplay is really well done with that, and look, the film is not necessarily saying anything new about race and things like that, but I think it's doing just enough to keep you invested. It's doing just enough to keep you interested in what's going on, and that's something that I thought was really well done within the screenplay overall. And like I said, the movie definitely does have a lot of fun moments. Some of the best moments of this movie are just the earlier moments with them teaching Nicholas Hoult's character, how to be a banker, how to speak more eloquently, how to do certain things. It's a lot of fun to watch, and again, seeing things go their way for a while, it's really great, and I think that the screenplay was definitely very well done there for sure. Yes, it definitely can get a bit generic at times, but I overall was impressed by the screenplay and the cinematography. Nothing like amazing really with the cinematography, but it captures the time period really well. There's some really good shots in this movie for sure, and I think they did a good job with that. And the score here as well, I definitely really did enjoy in this film. When it comes to the editing, though, that is definitely one of my bigger complaints. I think for the most part, this film is really well paced. Up until the third act, really. The third act, things get a little bit rushed. It feels like there's some key events that happen that the film kind of skips over, and I think they could have done a better job with that overall. But for the first two acts, it's paced very well. I never really felt the length in this movie. I never really felt bored by anything that was going on, and I think they did a good job with that. So again, there's a lot that I really do like about this film overall. There's a lot that I really am praising here. So is there anything that really does bring it down? Well, mainly for me, it's a lot of just character things. I will say right now, anyone other than Bernard and Samuel Jackson's character, there isn't a lot going on character-wise. Nicholas Hoult there is for a while, but we don't really know a lot about him. We don't really get to see a lot of him struggling as a character. There's a really good scene with him and his wife and them in this house and how she's kind of uncomfortable by all this, but we never really come back to that. I felt like they could have done more in their role. Again, Hoult's still really good in the role, and I did like his character at the end of the day, but I just think they could have done a little bit more writing-wise going on there. Same with Nia Long. It never really felt like they gave her as much as they could have to her character, so some of the characters just feel a little bit shortchanged in that way. And even Bernard, there's a part in the beginning of the movie where we're seeing him as a child, and I wish we could have gotten to see a little bit more of that. I wish we got to see a little bit more of Bernard struggling for a while, because we do get to see that, but it just felt like it was happening just a little too quickly. I wish they would have shown him struggling, and then when he finally grows to success, it's that much more effective. But this isn't like Self-Made or something like that, where you literally don't feel like he's ever struggling. Like, he definitely does struggle significantly in this movie, and I think that's something they do a good job with. Like, you can see that this is not easy what they're doing, and just seeing the way they pulled things off is just really fun to watch. But I will say, again, the way things go in the third act, it wasn't especially satisfying, the ending, just because of the fact that there were some things that I wanted to see. It was one of those instances where, like, there's text on the screen and they're telling you what happened, but I would have actually liked to see that happen. I would have actually liked to see what those characters are going through, and they didn't really do that, and that was a little bit disappointing. But overall, I definitely really did enjoy The Banker quite a bit. It can be really fun at points, but I think it also is a very insightful film. It does a really good job of showing how much Bernard Garrett and Joe Morris really did struggle, what they ended up creating and things like that, but also what this ended up doing for them personally, I thought was definitely really well done. The film definitely can get a bit generic at times. It definitely isn't anything you haven't seen before, but I think overall, if you want a really good biopic, I definitely think this is one to check out for sure. I overall really did end up enjoying this film, and just for Anthony Mackie and Samuel Jackson's performances alone, they do a really great job in this movie. Anthony Mackie especially is probably the best I've ever seen him, and he alone is enough of a reason to check this one out. But overall, guys, I definitely really did enjoy The Banker, and I'm going to give it overall a B. But overall, guys, in my review, The Banker, let me know what you guys saw this movie overall, if your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.